Welcome back into the early line as we flip it over to some college basketball action. Donnie Rightside here, Davis Mattek with also Mark Zinno joining us. Typically in the fall, we're talking SEC football with Mark, but we're going to turn it over to some SEC basketball. Then as we open, there are some good games tonight in the SEC, which we will get to. But Mark, I want to ask you about one game last night. Kentucky sort of slow playing it over the past week to week and a half here, not looking like the team that we saw early in the season, but a big win last night, 75-63 over Ole Miss. Is this a good sign of things to come for Kentucky? And what'd you like about them last night?
Well, look, Kentucky had lost 3 in a row at home for the first time since Rupp Arena opened, as in ever. So it was a tough go of things for the Wildcats over the past couple of games, and this was absolutely a game that they needed. Look, Mississippi is another team, too, that's kind of starting to come back down to earth. You know, that was one of the teams that was near the top of the country in luck rating in KenPom. And even though they're a good shooting team, they're just kind of starting to get outclassed as we get deeper into SEC play. But, yeah, that was a good win for Kentucky last night. They certainly needed it. This is a team right now that still kind of, they're in at this point in time, but they need a little bit more to sort of solidify their schedule here. And then they got to get Auburn coming up here at home. Go to Auburn, rather, on the road this coming weekend, which will be a real tough test for them. Auburn, for my money, is one of the top 3 teams in the country at this point in time. But they do have a favorable schedule the rest of the way out with the revenge spot against Tennessee coming up with the last game of the season. But there's no reason why they can't run between Auburn and Tennessee, which is the next game Auburn and the very last game in Tennessee. They can't run the 5 games in between in conference play. I still think Kentucky's a very good team. They're a great shooting team. Obviously, they can nail the 3, and that's always going to keep them in games.
Let's take a look at a game tonight in the SEC. It's South Carolina and Auburn on the rotation, 699-700. This is an 8:30 tip-off on the SEC Network tonight. Heavy favorite for the home team tonight, Auburn, at a -11 price at the FanDuel Sportsbook, and a total that opened up at 139.5, now down to 137.5. Setting the table in this game, South Carolina coming in at 9-2 overall in the SEC, Auburn at 8-3. And looking at the win streaks here, South Carolina on a 7-game win streak here, Mark. 3 straight road wins in the SEC. Auburn got tripped up in their last game, but also Auburn is unbeaten at home. It's a big line tonight. What's your vantage point on South Carolina and Auburn?
I mean, seeing a line that big, you would have thought Vanderbilt was the opponent, right? Like, it's not supposed to be a team that is 18-3 or 21-3 rather, and as good as they are. Look, I mean, the computers don't love South Carolina. Right? Like, objectively, if you believe in KenPom and the computers, they don't love South. There are 7 teams ranked above South Carolina, all in the SEC. So that ought to tell you where they are, with teams like Texas A&M and Florida coming in above them. So the computers don't love them. This is a South Carolina team that is very strong defensively, and they grind the tempo down. They're bottom 10 in the country in pace, and that's their strength, is to get the game to slow down. If they can do it, they got a shot to stay within this number. But it also tells you how good the computers think Auburn is, not only, as you mentioned, at home, but just what they do on both ends of the floor. Auburn is a top 5 team defensively. They're a top 15 team offensively when it comes to adjusted efficiency on both ends of the floor. So they play fast, top 70 in the country in tempo. So it's a styles make fights kind of deal. Usually the tempo goes to the home team in these situations here. Stay away game for me. I'm not stepping in front of Auburn because I think they're too good. I don't think South Carolina is as legit as their record says here, but with a defense like that, it's kind of like, how do you not take the 11 points? So no play in this game for me. I'll sit back and watch with a lot of interest and kind of look to see what both of these teams do and then look to their next game to see where they go.
All right, we've got another. We got a real mismatch here between Tennessee and Arkansas. Tennessee, a top 10 team in KenPom. Arkansas outside of the top 100 here. Tennessee only 8.5-point favorites on the road against the 12-11 Razorbacks. What do you make of this one, Zinno?
Arkansas is a team that I kind of left for dead after they lost to Kentucky at home. I didn't think they had anything left in them. They came out and they spanked Missouri, and then, they get drubbed by LSU, and then they get this weird, strange win against Georgia, who's actually a lot better than what we thought they were. I still don't think this Arkansas team is very good. They're not good on the defensive end of the floor at all, and this is a team that sort of, makes me wonder if Eric Musselman is kind of on his way out the door. It just sort of feels that way for the Razorbacks here, that things might be changing, because this was a team that we thought last year, had every chance to make the Final Four, or at least make a deeper run in the tournament, and it just didn't work out that way. But this is not an Arkansas team that I like. Defensively, they're just god-awful, dead last in the conference in adjusted defensive efficiency, and they can't stop anybody on the perimeter or inside. It's not a game. It's not a team that I would look to play. I'd probably look to a Tennessee team total over tonight, and just hope the fact that Tennessee, after their last showing, comes out and goes, guess what? We need to make somebody pay for how poorly we played last time. And Arkansas, you're up.
Yeah, should have some decent tempo in that game nonetheless. But if we factor in the SEC as a whole, just take a look at the standings. Teams with 7 wins or more in SEC play, that's the Kentucky Wildcats, the Florida Gators, and the Tennessee Volunteers, each with 7 wins. Then you find the Auburn Tigers playing tonight with 8 wins, followed by the South Carolina Gamecocks, who are also playing Auburn tonight with 9 wins, and then the Alabama Crimson Tide at the top of the standings, also with 9 wins here. If we're looking at the odds market here in the SEC, it's Alabama to plus 125 price, Tennessee plus 270, Auburn plus 280, followed by South Carolina, Kentucky, and Florida. Right now, if you had to pick the winner of the SEC regular season, Mark, who's it go to for you?
Give me the Auburn Tigers. That's still the best, most complete team in the conference. And look, they have Kentucky. After South Carolina, they have Kentucky and Tennessee still on deck. The rest of it's pretty favorable, with Georgia twice, Mississippi State, Missouri. But, as far as the regular season title is concerned here, I think that they are the team that I would back. I think Tennessee has kind of had too many hiccups along the way already. And when it looks at South Carolina, there's probably, if they lose this game, and I think they will, there's probably another slip up on deck for them against a lesser opponent in a team like LSU, or even traveling to Mississippi down the road. They got to go to Mississippi and A&M, who's a very tough team, especially defensively, A&M, in back-to-back games. And then they still have Florida and Tennessee again. It's a real tough stretch for South Carolina here. I mean, LSU and Mississippi State are really their only reprieves in their final 7 games that they have left. So I don't like the chances for South Carolina, but I would go with Auburn. And I think Auburn still has a revenge date left. No, they don't. They already revenged their Alabama loss. Yeah. So that's the only other thing that they would need help with is Alabama, just given the position that they're in right now.
All right, theme of the day, pretty huge spreads. We have the team that is favored to win the college basketball national championship in Uconn going up against DePaul, who is 299th in KenPom right now. They are 290th in offense, 277th in defensive efficiency. 24.5-point spread here for the 3-2 DePaul. Oof, man. Are we even tuning in to this one, Zinno?
As a devout and lapsed practicing Catholic, it is Ash Wednesday, so I should not talk unkindly about the Catholics at DePaul, who continue to take the Big East money. And if there was not that religious tie to their school, guess what? They probably would no longer be in the Big East. But hey, tithing runs deep. What can I tell you? It's what I grew up with. DePaul is not a legitimate Power 5, Power 6 basketball team at all. Like, they're just not. They belong somewhere in like the colonial, now the coastal, whatever you want to call it, or even in the American, somewhere with that level of talent. They're just going to continue to get outclassed in this conference year in and year out because they're not going to invest the resources into trying to make it a better program. Am I going to lay 24.5? Hell no, I'm not laying 24.5. That's just crazy. I mean, at some point in time, UConn will be able to take their foot off the gas pedal, pull up a little bit, and, just let DePaul continue to score because they'll be up by 27 and this game gets to within 22 and no one bats an eye at it. So no, we're not going to watch. No, we're not going to lay 24. And we just are hoping that UConn does not get anybody hurt in this game so they still have a chance to go back-to-back and win the national title again.
Yeah, you take a look at the Big East standings there, and yes, Uconn is 12-1, followed there by Marquette, who got a nice win over Butler last night on the road. The Creighton Blue Jays coming in third here with 9 wins in Big East play. So it's the number 1 team, the number 4 team, and the number 17 team here. I always get a kick out of DePaul here. I mean, how badly do you want that Chicago market to hold up? Because it is an easy and a free win for most of these teams that are playing DePaul on a week-to-week, year-to-year basis here in the Big East. But if we factor in who's going to win the Big East, is it so simple just to say here that it's the Uconn Huskies at a minus 1,500 price? Is there a chance that Marquette can climb up here? Talk to me about those Huskies here. Are they getting a free pass because they play in the Big East here, Mark?
Well, they're not getting a free pass. Look, the Big East is the second best conference in college basketball, and there's a reason for that, because you go 10 teams, or 9 teams rather, that are all within the top 60, top 70 of KenPom, right? Like, these are all legitimate opponents night in and night out. So if you're not Georgetown and DePaul, guess what? You got a tough game on your hands no matter what. There is no real look-ahead spots in the Big East because everybody can beat you on any given night. Marquette, to me, is still – I think Connecticut's a little bit overvalued. I genuinely do. Marquette, to me, is still, I think, the best team in the Big East, despite what we're looking at here numbers-wise and conference record. Look, they got 2 matchups, Marquette does, with Connecticut, right? In fact, Marquette's next game is coming up on Saturday at Connecticut. So they have 2 chances here to go and steal wins against Uconn, a team that I think that they can do it against and win this Big East title. So I absolutely do not count out Marquette as a team that is a viable team to go win the Big East. And even to a certain extent, the hole might be a little bit big for Creighton. And they've had some lapses in games that I really didn't think that they were going to lose, but did, and kind of, played closer. The Butler loss was bad. The Providence loss in OT was bad. Those are teams that they should have beaten, especially Butler at home. In a game that was 99-98 in regulation, guys. I mean, crazy to think college, but for 2 defensive teams, like, that was what was supposed to happen. So Creighton's got the outside shot, but Marquette to me is very, very live. And if you're getting plus money on them, take them.
Yeah, I think that is legit. Real quick, before we get out of here, let's take a look at the national championship odds across the board. We just spent a lot of time talking about the Big East. Do you have anyone? I mean, do you have a portfolio going right here? Does anyone at the top of the board look good to you? Are there any moves that we need to make here on Valentine's Day?
I think Houston is still the best team in the country. I mean, they are at 9-1. You're not going wrong with putting it on them. The Big 12 this year tested them enough that getting through the tournament for 6 games is a challenge. I spoke before about how highly I think Auburn is. But again, Marquette would be on my card as a team that has a chance to win the national title. A lot of that's going to depend on draw and where they finish and how they get seeded. Same thing for Houston and Auburn. And I mean, is Kansas you can't not bet Kansas at 22-1. It just feels like there's a ton of value in a team that's got the pedigree to go win it. I just don't know that they're as good as they've been in the past.
No, and I agree with you there. And the fun part about this with college basketball, you can wait right up till March Madness and get great prices on teams to win the national championship. UConn cashed a ticket at 25-1, but it would have been much more sweet if I was rolling in here through the NFL season with a Ravens cashed an 18-1 ticket for a Super Bowl. But it happens, Mark. It certainly does. Thanks for joining us today on the Early Line, breaking down college basketball. I'm sure we'll see you soon. Davis and Donnie will continue on with the Early Line, talking a little Fade the Public coming up next.